Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there and all the wannabe fathers, anybody that's a father figure to anybody, because I'll have you know, I am your father tonight, RDV, because I am Rob, your host, as always, from the Xtreme Movie Studios in the Bias Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. We have a sequel of sorts, a movie that we're going to be reviewing tonight. Supercop 2, aka Police Something, whatever, aka transphobic Jackie Chan has.
It's called Project S. It's not Police Story. It's a spinoff from Police Story 3.
I understand that, sir. So I don't know the Asian name for it, but I also saw some Asian names that I want to try to pronounce here while people are probably into the chat as we review this first watch for both of us. And I don't know if this is Michelle Yeoh, Michelle Yowzer, or Michelle Yummy, but either way, they all seem to work because she looks good in here. The rest of the movie is kind of hit or miss for me, but it's kind of interesting, and I know it's something we want to talk about because of how good the last one was.
And I want to point out, if you want to know what the actual information about the movie, it's actually in the description. It gives you all the titles, so you don't have to guess, sir. And also, I'm glad to be here, Daddy.
I am your father now, sir.
No!
I can pull a Christian and talk about your father being dead, but I don't want to go there just yet.
But honestly, this was a fun movie. A little rare gem for me. I like watching Michelle Yeoh. It's a simple plot. It's continuing her character off from Supercop, where she's an inspector. She has to go back to Hong Kong, and she has to track down these criminals. Basically, she was basically to help out, but she gets involved because that's what people do when they're out of town cops. They come in and like, no, he's mine. So they get involved, and the guy she was in love with had originally left her because he had a job in Hong Kong 6 months ago. So 6 months has gone by. Of course, because it's one of those movies, that guy is now working for the bad guys. And then when they try to reconcile, and he sacrifices himself at the end, for her and stuff. It's like very tragic, but it actually was really good though for me. I enjoyed it. As far as the martial arts, the fight scenes in here too, stunts in here. Guy jumping off the building landing onto a bus.
Yeah.
And then she doesn't need to try it though. She just jumps off into the other building and then jumps to the street. But I thought about that when the last time I saw anybody try jumping onto a movie train was what was that? Fugitive #2, U.S. Marshals. Was
the Snipes. Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember what year that came out. If that was around this time, obviously, I want to say probably later, a couple of years later.
A little bit later. It was more mid to late 90s for that one. But also too, it was in that Chicago set movie with Chuck Norris in there.
Yeah,
a big train sequence at the end.
I like this movie because of the fact it brings back the same characters that were in the previous Supercop. So if you watch Supercop, and it's all of Jackie Chan's basically his supporting cast.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie Chan does make a small cameo in here, a little goofy scene, but that's about it. At this point, he's a senior inspector. He's pretty much gone up from what he was before.
You're off the case.
Yes. So, and then we find out that he's basically being reassigned to go to the United States. So I don't know. I haven't watched Police Story, the one that came out in 2011. I don't know if that continues where his case going to, if it has anything tied to that or how. Mm-hmm. But honestly, Michelle Yeoh kicks butt here, dude. She does. That high kicking sequel it's true. It's not clickbait. I like this. I can understand why it did not go to America, and I'm glad it didn't go to America because it would have not been well received because Americans like everything slow. At least back then it is. The 90s was the drama. It's like, why are we in the drama? I want action movies still. And I just didn't care for a lot of the movies that came out in the 90s. I mean, there was some stuff. Like, if it was a Bond movie, you knew you're getting action. But, there was Executive Decision, I think, and a few other ones. We were going into the Seagal movies, and I was just like, ugh.
Well, the main thing is we've talked about here on Father's Day. We always reevaluate one of the more important days of the year, especially when it comes to movies. How there's a severe shortage of Father's Day movies, and so we're going to be reviewing the best Father's Day movie of all time, which of course is Commando, live after this stream here. So tune in for that. And I think when we started doing that and talking about it, not only did we use the words wholesome, and we reviewed some movies about dogs. I think what it comes down to is what we liked about Jackie Chan's films is whether you like his particular style or not, they're for the most part wholesome. There's some lighthearted stuff in there. You can be a young kid and watch it or older. I do agree with you that we know that when we get a Jackie Chan film, we're going to see, as we've said before, the generic checklist, right? We're going to have a foot chase. We're going to have a parkour scene. We're going to have a jumping scene. We're going to have maybe a moving car, a car
Guns,
scene or something.
explosions. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to get all that, and you definitely get that here. I would I'd offer a couple observations for this film. Is that one, while it's her same character, I felt her character had a much bigger impact or just impression to me in the first movie because she was opposed Jackie Chan. Being
Yeah.
the lead here, in no ways any sort of weak, but they could have called her Miss Yowzer, and it could have been a brand new character. And it didn't change anything because it was the same character to me. But obviously, she did such a good enough job. We were impressed by it. We wanted to take a look at this, and I'll agree with you to a point. I think a lot of the stunts in here are pretty good. The gun stuff, I think I owe you and the extremists who listen in an apology, RDV, and that's this. You and I don't claim to be experts. We just claim to be fans of trying to watch stuff and say what we like and don't like here on Extreme
Yeah.
Movie. And I've always told you how I didn't like guns and martial arts movies because then it's not, martial arts anymore, right?
Yeah.
And I think watching this movie, it became clear why that is. And even though Commando, best Father's Day movie of all time, is the movie we signal out as the transitioning from physical combat to using guns a lot around 1985, I think that explains how quickly we get into the 90s with your previous comment. But the reason why the guns ruined the martial arts isn't that it takes away from the martial arts, because there's some fantastic stunts in here. Not necessarily martial arts, but stunts. There's both. It's the fact that when you get the shootout like you do at the big plaza there, where you've got all these different people shooting at each other, this is worse than any Leslie Nielsen police squad episode where you're shooting 2 feet away with 1,000 bullets and you can't hit anybody because they are the worst shots on the planet. It was laughably bad how they used guns in here. And I will say this. We always talk about Michael Mann and loving guns and how he uses them really well with sound and everything, and Collateral and other movies. Americans, give it to us. We own the gun things. We'll be second place martial arts or whatever you want to call it, guys. Because boy, I wish we could have as good martial arts in our action films as good as our gun scenes are, and here it can be exported to other countries. Because this movie is not a goofy movie. I wouldn't say it's overly serious. I think it's a bubblegum kind of action film. It's decent, it's solid, but some of the stunts are really good. And you're right. The big thing that pops out to you when you watch this, especially with Michelle Yeoh scenes, is how fast these people are moving. Holy crap! It's really a pleasure to watch, wasn't it?
The way to describe this, as far as the guns, missing all that stuff, is basically watching any of the Stallone movies, the Assassins, or what was the Specialist,
Right?
Of course, or Heat is a big one where they don't hit everybody. It's another one. I don't mind that. I like seeing the guns in here because I know we're like anti-gun everything. We can't even have it in movies anymore because it's guns are scary. I was liking this. Look at the guns they're using here. They're using the bullpups. The ones for those who watch World Enough, these are the guns that have the scopes on the top, and they're machine guns. They have the little barrels. These are nice. These are not your AK-47,
right?
Or people call them assault rifles. These were it was nice. They give out bursts. They're not fully automatic. They give out burst modes, and I liked them. These are kind of cool. I liked everything on here. Even at the end, when I got a little bit of just make sure different movies in this as far as the genre they're building it up. I thought this was decent. This is straight. You could tell it's 90s.
Yes.
And I don't mind it as much because it's early 90s.
Yes.
It's there's no internet. They're still using the Apple computers.
Mm-hmm.
And the new technology they have, what the bad guys want, is this operating system. Basically, it's kind of like an AI thing. Basically, this one company has it, and they built it, and it allows them to basically to monitor anything. As far as like if it detects crime, pretty much the point. So they wanted to steal that because they needed to steal that because they later want to go rip off this Hong Kong's giant bank.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some devastating scenes in here. Twice we showed the end where the guy gets crushed by the vault door. Oh my gosh! I was just cringing at that. I'm like, And he's trying to hold it. It's like, no, he's like, dude, I'm already gone. I mean, he's like, go kill that bastard. It was like, no, we're gonna leave again. I'm like, dude's already half cut off by the door by this point. There's no way that he's gonna stop the door. And then you see him, he goes like, ah, but yeah, I don't really like a lot of the '90s action movies because like some of them are really like drama-y, where there's no action. It's just periods of just like just talking, talking. Heat is famous for that. Heat has some good scenes, but a lot of it to me was just like, okay, when do we get into the next action scene, guys? I'm tired of you guys bickering like old wives. But
well, and that's the thing too is you mentioned stunts and I mentioned stunts because I separate all those things when we have a movie like this. So is it a martial arts movie? Is it an action movie? Some people like to call it blended. I really kind of despise when people, use the hyphenated things. It's a horror comedy. It's a action drama. It's a action adventure. What the fuck kind of movie is it? And everything else is second or third place.
Adventure, well, action adventure makes sense because sometimes there are movies that have scenes by action and adventure. Indiana Jones.
I don't disagree with you on that, but what's Indiana Jones primarily? An action movie or an adventure movie? I would say it's an adventure movie.
It's mainly an adventure movie with scenes of action.
I get it, but when you say it's two things, then you're telling the audience to pay attention to these two things, and then both things have to be good.
Evil Dead's a horror comedy. It's a dark horror.
It's a comedy.
It's a dark comedy, yeah, but it's got elements of horror in it. It's got freaking demons, bro. It's comedy, but yes, I mean, it has.
You're telling me Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a horror movie?
Pretty much.
Okay.
It might not be the best movie. There are such things as corny horror movies.
Those are comedies.
So but they're dubbed as horror movies. All the Friday the 13th, all the Michael Myers are dubbed as horror movies, but they're pretty much comedy movies for how bad they are. The story plots are. So I don't know. I'll look at it this way. No matter what genre you call it, all that matters, did you enjoy the movie at the end? Comes down to you can label this whatever you want. I call this high octane action movies. That was the '90s. They're trying to do that after the patriotic. I guess late '80s was like Go America. '90s was just like screw America. They don't like us, like Broken Arrow. We got we're just gonna government's bad, and we're just gonna blow up stuff now, and just like that was the '90s.
The butt hurt all of a sudden.
Yeah,
America was too good. Boo hoo.
But this is still the same as it was. If you watch Supercop, or if you watched the '80s Hong Kong's movies.
You're bringing up a good point about it because we try to talk themes here, and by the mid to late '80s we talk about Americanism. At some point you're going to suffer fatigue, and then of course we turned into a recession. Late '80s, early '90s, we had a change of presidents and all that. So just the vibe culturally changed, and overseas here, to your point, there's nothing that really stands out too much that dates it, other than maybe some of the clothes or the lack of certain technologies.
Cell phones, that's about it.
And I saw this on a less than ideal print copy. I would love to have seen this on a better one because it looks good, and that's one of the things we've talked about with these movies is it looks, it's modernized. The clothing they wears, we're used to seeing the action films, Golden Harvest or all the other types there were their period pieces, and so they're turn of the century and they're wearing robes. Now we're in big cities and stuff, and there's a lot of really cool scenes in here, like the opening scene. Let's talk about that. We get an extraction basically, and so there's definitely some high level stuff in here. And it's one thing that say Hong Kong or any major city in America seems to have a tough time doing, and that's showing you that they're high up. So here we get Michelle Yeoh basically getting in and trying to infiltrate a dude out of it by posing as a doctor, and so she gets the paddles or whatever like that, and she's getting ready to like jump the dude or whatever like that, but there's two people keeping guard over him, so she zaps the one, immediately they go into fight. So a fight's gonna happen, something's going on. So of course it's 101 action movie. Give us something that we can get dialed into early to kind of see what's going on.
When I first started watching and I saw this, we're going straight into the fighting, and I was like, dude, I knew I was gonna like this movie because like I love action, and if this movie knew exactly what they needed to do because they weren't going to have Jackie Chan in it, so they needed to go big. and I like that it shows off her skills fight because they need to prove that because we've seen her with Jackie Chan, but she needs to stand on her own. How can she stand on her own? We give her team her up with a less intimidating kind of a idiot cop who's basically his sister's trying to
She
set
can
up other
carry
things.
the film.
Yeah, she did. I
I
thought
agree.
it's any other character or actress probably would have been not as well. Probably I'm thinking as far as I'm trying to think as far as our American actors. If there was been a standalone female film, I don't think it would have been as great. Michelle Yeoh has proven herself. Cynthia Khan proved herself after Michelle Yeoh left the In the Line of Duty franchise. I mean, it's been one of the. I would say Michelle Yeoh is the Donnie Yen, the female Donnie Yen. The way she acts, everything.
She's not nearly as boring, but they both have that serious way they express themselves.
I wouldn't say boring, but I mean, I'd say they're not Jackie Chan. There's not slapstick in here.
Agreed.
Yeah, the only slapstick is that Jackie Chan comes in here dressed as undercover as a woman, and another guy is dressed in the same uniform. They're dressed.
They're popping each other's boobies.
Yeah. And the one had the little guy. Remember, you shake them, they make noise.
Yep.
Noise. I was like, oh my gosh, I had one of those. He goes, they make the noise. Like, it vibrates and shakes. No, so we reviewed. I think it was Tiger Claw. Was that the one we read? What was the one we read with Donnie Yen? I
think that sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think it was that. And I know, and it just kind of felt like, it was a drama, but you actually had lots of action here, corruption, all that stuff. And this was basically a bank job movie with a out of town cop coming in and realizing her ex-lover is now working for the bad guy and trying to hope that he's not working with them. She's trying to figure it out, but she thinks he is, and she hopes he's wrong. I mean, it made sense because this was a female character. Now, if there's been a male character, they would have gone that route.
Yeah.
So it was kind of stereotypical of that. I'll give them that. I'll knock a point out for that. But it didn't really detract it for me, though. I thought this was really good. The music's pretty good. I love the machine gun sounds, dude. I love it. I know you said everybody misses and stuff, but hey, I'll just say, useless cop, Martin, whatever his name is, he took out the bad guy with 15 shots. He just blew him away.
Well, the thing is one of the things when you have, say, guns in movies is okay, I'll go to the opposite extreme here and I'll bring up John Wick yet again. You have such a high level of skill, then it's not a question of the effectiveness of what it's trying to accomplish in terms of a story. It's more about the demonstrating of it, which turns people on as an audience member. But again, I go back to the Chuck Norris school, or just my line of thinking is that it's supposed to add up to something and be meaningful. So while this movie is less goofy than, say, if Jackie Chan were in the lead, there are some lighthearted things to it. It's not too heavy. I think, though, that particular scene you're talking about here, where you waste the dude there, is that
was in the warehouse, abandoned.
Yeah, it's so laughably bad how bad everyone's missing that you're like, you guys are demonstrating such elite level skills. Everything's pinpoint accuracy, the fighting, the tumbling, everything. It just feels good. You almost don't know what they're going to do next stunt wise, and you're like, damn, this is really good. And then to have that level of expertise where you're really awestruck by it, to be interrupted by some laughably bad shooting, even though they don't normally want to show that, I guess, too much. Just it breaks that spell that you're getting hypnotized to by watching them move. Because that opening fight, to your point, we get to see what happens here, and it's a high tech extraction. It seems like a simple stunt, right? They lower the guy down, and then there's two more people that got to come down, but people are breaking in, so there's that automatic tension built in. It doesn't have to be a counter or a bomb, although there kind of was. But just to see her kind of be let go of the rope and just land on the ledge part of the crane they were bringing up for the extraction, that was a cool scene. It wasn't the best one, but it was good enough. And it was good with some hallway fighting and the way the camera was following them around while there was some chasing. It felt like it had some energy, so it wakes you up and perks you up for the movie. So it's evenly spaced out, the action set pieces and everything. I think that's a positive for it. I don't think there was any drop off in terms of production quality from the first film to this one. No. Other than this, I will say this. The other one, because of Jackie Chan's name and whatnot, obviously it felt like a much bigger movie than this one. I still felt like this was solid. I don't really see any pluses or minuses that, it to me could have been a standalone movie and it would have been fine. There was nothing that you need to see the first one to watch this one, in my opinion. It's that kind of isolated film. I don't know what the word is for it, but it's a vehicle for her, which is how I took it. I wanted her to do well in it. I think she did. She has, like you said, the Donnie Yen kind of thing to her, and I appreciate that because it allows some of the other stuff to be kind of goofy. Like when the guy blows everybody away, it's like she doesn't look like, hey, you finally were able to do that. So I like her kind of having that look to it. If she was a goofball, this would not work.
And as far as it says, I in the gun stuff, it says like I understand if everybody would started killing all the cops left and right, there'd be no cast left. As far
Exactly.
as
Right.
and it would be such a much darker movie. They wanted to keep it lighthearted. That was the '90s blockbuster movies. There was always that. The only time you ever killed off people was an executive decision, which kind of like was shocking to me because I was like, "Hey, here's Seagal," and there goes Seagal. And then people getting shot left and right. Mission Impossible. Remember?
Mission Impossible, they did kill them all off, and that was exactly on Brian De Palma, which is like a joke to him, and a lot of people got pissed off about it.
Yeah.
As well as the guy that was their lead ends up being the bad guy in the end. That was a big shocker when that first Mission Impossible came out.
It was John Voight was
yes,
wasn't he? Yeah, he was the bad guy at the end. I forget.
Yeah, he turned.
Yeah.
He lacked a moral center.
Overall,
especially on Father's Day.
Summarize this movie. If you want a movie to watch, and this is a popcorn movie. And it's not, and it's. I think it's believable. There's scenes where she's fighting at the. I love it because she's a scene at the end where she's fighting against this guy, who you'd say he's kind of like Braun Strowman.
Yeah, he's like 6'5", 6'8".
Yeah, and she's kicking multiple times. He's just like, "What are you doing here?" Picks her up, starts choking her, and she gets saved by somebody else, pretty much. Toward the end there. So I mean, it was believable. It wasn't like oh, here's this 125-year-old girl gonna jump up and just hit him, and then like because she could like punch as many times as he wants, unless she's hitting vital organs, pressure points. He ain't gonna go down.
He's over twice her weight, easy.
Yeah, I mean, but she's trying to kick him in the kidney, the side here, multiple times. She was trying to during her best. She gets, So I like that because I was wondering like, what are you doing here? Because whenever there's always I love that in movies and TV shows. There's always one, the giant guy. He's like, there's always one of them.
Yes,
for whatever reason. And I love that stereotype. The cliche thing. So even Jean-Claude Van Damme had one, so did Jackie Chan's had him too. That I love it when there's always the big goon. It's like really, I gotta go get this mini boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But overall though, I guess this was a fantastic movie for me. I probably will watch it again 20 years from now because no matter what movie it is, I cannot watch it more than once within and then I need to like forget it a little bit and then watch it again.
Yeah, I'll say this about a couple scenes and I'll have one final thought here. The one scene towards the end where it's getting towards the end, like towards the end of the second act, going into the last act. What I liked was when they had the big chase, they ended up on top of the building. I mentioned before how we saw the shootout and went ground level, and then we had the extraction. The other thing this does well, because I assumed it was filmed in Hong Kong Bay, but
I think
these guys have the paragliders with them, so they just do a full run to the edge of the building, jump off, and then they just fly away. I'm like, the way that was shot looked fucking cool. It's like, man, that makes you want to do stunts, right? But I think for me, the best scene in here was a stunt scene, and that includes all the fighting, is the scene where she's chasing the bad dude, ends up hopping into a car, after they kind of jump off buildings. And so she sees him driving away. So, it's a real densely populated city. So she makes her way down the stairs. But then you see her where she's running over cars. And then she goes to do this full jump to land in the back of his convertible Mercedes or like that. And it's such a perfectly timed scene. It's worth just looking this up. The guy speeds away because he stopped in traffic, and she face plants right on the friggin' ground, and that's the end of the chase. That was so good. I wasn't expecting. I was like, oh my god, she bit it. That was cool.
The reason you're going to see kind of those kind of moves because this is directed by a guy who did Supercop, Stanley Tong.
Yes.
He's from One the Bronx, First Strike, The Myth, Vanguard. He does a lot of Jackie Chan's movies. He directs them. And he's the one that pushed her to do that move where she jumped on the car from the truck in Supercop. So,
right.
So without this director, she never really would have basically went for the all the stunts. But now that she said she's older, like you said, she's looking back, he's like, I did a lot of crazy shit. And
Well,
she's
my
like,
final thought is
yeah,
piling exactly on what you're saying, because
yeah,
the big thing I wanted to see from her was not just charisma wise or looks wise or whatever you want to call it, her carrying the film. I wanted to see her be believable as an actress. I could care less about the character, to
yeah,
be honest with you. I mean, I'm not saying I hate anybody. Nobody was really pissing me off. But the thing here at the end is that I felt like her moveset was a lot firmer. I thought it was a lot more exact and on point. It was more definitive. So like there's this one scene, I forget which fight it was, but she's fighting. It's a quick fight. But you see her early on, she does this split as she slides through and shoots up at somebody, but so she can do the splits. But then you see another one where she leans forward, and it's in one of those fighting video games where she's on her front leg, let's say, and her back leg comes from behind her, and because she
yeah.
can do the splits, it's 180 degrees and pops somebody. Like that's really badass. But she also poses a little bit like with the
Mhm.
bad guy at the end and whatever kung fu or pose or whatever that is. And I thought, I was glad to see a little bit, not flamboyant, because that's not what happened in this movie, but like I said, a lot more. Hey, are we sure she's a good martial artist? Because did they just get her through the first movie? We remember the big stunt at the end, and so that helps us forget all the other
Well,
possible things she might have had. But no, this movie should definitely confirm to anybody about her ability because of what she displayed on. They did a very good job on that. And that's why it's a successful
this
movie.
director is a director who directed Leslie Nielsen's Mr. Magoo movie.
Well, I don't know what really to say about it because I refused to see Mr. Magoo. I never
Um,
saw it.
Apparently, it's got a 4.1 on IMDb. I never watched it either. But he also did 3 episodes of Martial Law, TV
Yeah,
series.
yeah. Martial
Yeah,
law
yeah.
had an audience.
Kung Fu Yoga, all this stuff, Jackie Chan stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing some more of these movies that these guys directed. Apparently, this movie it grossed over 9 million, or not, yeah, in Hong Kong as of November 8th, 1993. In U.S. dollars, this was just only at the time 1,200,000 or over a little over $1 million, equivalent to base would be like 2,500,000 in today, like for 2003. When they
Right.
so it made money, but it wasn't really meant to be like a big blockbuster hit. It was just kind of
Just
like,
a vehicle
yeah,
for
that's all it
her.
was. It's just
Hey, now we have something. Let's milk it, and they were able to. Without this film or the first one, who knows where she
yeah,
would have ended up?
yeah,
She's even big now, and some people might say it's the twilight of her career. But when you do stuff like this when you're younger, it can pay off later. And so it's good to see that she definitely's earned to be where she's at. I would agree with you on that.
yeah. Definitely glad I watched it though. Maybe a first time watch. I didn't know it even existed until So, but for those who are looking for the movie, because you can't unless you're going to buy it. Someone uploaded the English dub. I posted right there. It's in the chat. You can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Boom, that's why I watched it. Watched it while I was driving home.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Supercop 2 Project S, aka Michelle Yeoh's or
Yes.
Michelle Yummy, Michelle Yeoh. It's decent film. Check it out. Got some really great action in. If you're an action fan, martial arts fan, it's definitely worth checking out too.
Yep.
We'll be heading over and launching here in just a moment our Father's Day stream, of course, where we cover the greatest Father's Day movie of all time, and that would be Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So for RDV and everybody involved here at the Xtreme Movie Show, have a good night. Thanks for listening. Stay extreme. Good night now.
Later, guys.